Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and today is December 5th of 2024, and we're celebrating Thursday of the first week of Advent. Today's Gospel comes to us from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 7, verses 21, and then verses 24 through 27. Jesus said to his disciples, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. Everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house, but it did not collapse. It had been set solidly on rock. And everyone who listens to these words of mine but does not act on them will be like a fool who built his house on sand. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house, and it collapsed and was completely ruined." In today's Gospel, Jesus gives a rather bleak warning concerning false discipleship. That is, against those who profess Christ in word, or hear what he says, but fail to follow through with what he commands. Christ tells us explicitly that it's not enough just to call upon him. We have to be obedient to the Father's instructions. Now, we could say that this is the difference between the two houses. Presumably, they looked similar, and at least on the surface, both appeared sturdy. But what mattered wasn't external appearances, but rather the foundations into which they were sunk. The one who hears God's words and obeys his will builds on rock, because ultimately, docility to God's will is the only thing that brings happiness and stability. Whereas the one who might hear God's word but interprets it in their own way, or just follows their own will, sets their house on a flimsy foundation. Now, it's this docility to God's will that we need to cultivate in our lives, because our entire happiness, both in this life and the next, revolve around it. There will never be any shortage of storms that we will confront, be they external problems, internal struggles, whatever. But obedience and docility to God, both in what he asks of us and also what he sends us or what he permits to come our way, is the key to happiness. As we prepare ourselves for Christmas, we can think of the words of St. Alphonsus Liguori and St. Francis de Sales. Writing about the just person who unites their will to God's, Liguori writes, "The just man is constant in his serenity, no matter what befalls him. His calmness of soul is founded on his union with the will of God. Hence he enjoys unruffled peace. This is the peace promised by the angel of the Nativity, and on earth peace to people of good will." Who are these people of good will, if not those whose wills are united to the infinitely good and perfect will of God, the good and the acceptable, and the perfect will of God? In other words, that angelic promise that we heard at Christmas is fulfilled every day for the one whose will it is to do God's will. We can ask ourselves, do we really try to unite our wills to God's, not just in following the commandments, which is important, but also in whatever he allows to come our way? Likewise, St. Francis de Sales said, "I take as my model the little babe of Bethlehem, who knew so much, could do so much, and allowed himself to be managed without a word. I take as my model the little babe of Bethlehem, who knew so much, could do so much, and yet allowed himself to be managed without a word." In other words, at Bethlehem, St. Francis is saying, at Bethlehem, the child Jesus, who is true God, was omnipotent and all-knowing, and yet utterly docile to those whom the Father had entrusted his care. Think, the Blessed Virgin Mary even had to change his diapers. Do we imitate the child Jesus in his docility? So through the intercession of Mary, Our Lady of the Expectation, let's ask for the grace not only to be hearers of the word, but also doers of the word, meaning those who live it out in obedience and docility.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed hearing the Gospel and homily, I invite you to share it with someone you know who may also find it rewarding, and also to subscribe to the Catholic Voice channel. Please see in the description below if you would like to receive a text message for each daily gospel and homily. Please also keep our missionary priests throughout the world in your prayers. Thank you, and God bless.